Hey guys, this is Chaz with Law Have Mercy back again with another episode. This is one of my favorite episodes yet. Our guest Raymond Calais talks very candidly about what it takes to be an NFL running back, former Raging Cajun. He talks about the highs and lows of the process. He talks about playing in a Super Bowl, playing with Tom Brady. It's packed with gems and a bunch of tips and advice for everyone. I know you'll enjoy it. I think the entire community of Cecilia would like to thank your mother, right, for dragging you across I-10.
Right.
Yeah, because I think that worked out pretty well.
No, for sure. It worked out perfectly. I think I wouldn't imagine it happening any kind of other way, and I'm kind of happy she did that. Kind of it made me better. It made me work harder. It made me see a different kind of I guess like world in a sense, like from being closed off in Bo Ridge, where it was like I had my friends there, but it was also like a lot of friction. And then I go to Cecilia, it's like new people, new faces. Felt like the food tastes different. I was like, man, everything's just different.
Everything's
you know what I mean?
there just and it's just a mile apart, if that.
Yes, for sure.
I mean,
for sure.
So thank you for being here, first of all, because you have a flight to catch tomorrow.
I sure do.
Yeah, where are you going?
So I'm going to Dallas. I'm going to have to report to camp for. It's now called the United Football League. It was the XFL and /USFL, but now those teams have joined one union, and I'll be playing in this spring football league. So I have to report to Dallas.
Yeah, and you're playing for the Michigan Panthers?
Yeah, the Michigan Panthers.
It used to be Detroit.
It used to be Detroit. Now they changed it to Michigan. It's same thing.
Yeah. And is it going to be weird flying actual with normal people and not on a private jet somewhere?
Yeah, man. It's gonna be it's gonna be totally different from NFL. I think NFL was just like, they had the team playing, and you got food. You had Chick-fil-A waiting on you. You had the catering. Everything was laid out for you. You sat in first class, so you had the little seats that rolled. You had a TV in front of you. You had pillows. Everything. It was like they was catering to you. But now it's gonna be a little different going on a regular flight. So
is The Rock your boss? Is The Rock involved in UFL?
Yes, he is. He's the boss. He's the boss. And I met him a couple times. I met him when he came to the Rams, Los Angeles, when he worked out with Aaron Donald. That was crazy. Seeing those two bodybuilders almost like, they was working out, and I was just peeking in the weight room like, that's really The Rock. You know what I mean? And it was hammer curling some 100-pound dumbbells. I was like, bro, come on, bro.
And we see The Rock and we think he's like superhuman, but Aaron Donald is 50 times the football player The Rock ever dreamed of being.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah, I mean, and then some. I mean, Aaron Donald is one of the best football players that ever lived.
For sure. And he was the first person I was actually like starstruck to see. I mean, I was on the team with Tom Brady, but when I got to Los Angeles and I saw Aaron Donald, I was like, man, this dude, he really have a 12-pack. It was like, I couldn't believe how much muscle he had on his body and how hard he worked, and how, just like the way he approaches business, he was just always on point, man. He was never caught lacking. Everything was just always precise, very detail-oriented, and I was just like, man, that's somebody you want to follow. You know what I mean? That's somebody you want to be like, yeah, that's crazy. Just looking at a picture like that, man.
Whoa.
A funny story is every time he would take off his shirt, like in the weight room or after practice, everybody would just look. Like he was just like almost like every time. It was like, man, like that's really his. And not to fantasize over it, but it was just crazy because everybody would put their shirt back on. They would see he Aaron Donald take his off. It was like a joke.
So, so you're starstruck. You're a young player.
Mm-hmm.
You go to L.A. We'll talk about Tampa Bay in a second, but you go to L.A., you see Aaron Donald. You're, like, blown away by him. You're an offensive player.
Right.
New guy. How do you kind of approach him and be like, hey, Mr. Donald, how does that work? I guess you can't call people mister.
No, I think, you know what, and then that was like another thing. Once I got there and once I was a part of the team, it ain't no time to fan. It's like,
oh, man.
Like you're one of us now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's almost like, okay, like they dab me up, they shake my hand, and now let's go to work. It's that simple. It wasn't no time to, let me get a picture, let me get an autograph. It was like, no, we're here to work, we're here to win. We have a team motto. And let's just get the business, man. Let's get the ball going. So whenever I got there, man, I remember because I was a new face, so Sean McVay had introduced me. I stood up and I was like, we had a team meeting, and I stood up, introduced myself, and then that was it. He break. We went to offensive meetings. The defense went to defensive meetings, and then we came back for practice later on that afternoon, and Aaron Donald tackled me. It was that quick. It was like,
what does that feel like?
well, he didn't really he didn't really put his whole body on me. He just really like gave me a bear hug because we was doing a goal line drill, and it was the twos versus the one defense, as it is in practice. And I got the handoff, and all I remember seeing was Aaron Donald. It was like nobody could block him in practice. So certain plays, Sean McVay would be like, "Hey, Donald, take a break off. Let's get a look here." You know what I mean? Because he was like almost unblockable. But it was cool though. He hugged me, like he gave me like a bear hug, hit me on the head. It was like, "Good job, Brooke." I was like, "Man, I ain't even do anything." I was like, but I feel like that was like my welcome to the team for like with him.
But he had the mindset, like he even knew who you were in that moment to acknowledge that you were a rook.
Right.
Like he knew, like how does that guy who is playing at the highest level, defensive player of the year, one of the best all time, take the time to get to know that he's tackling you in that moment?
But I think that's just the kind of person that he was, and the culture that I think Sean McVay and Les Snead, the general manager, had set in Los Angeles. Like, you would think a big city like that, and a well-known team with superstars, they would be, self-centered and just obnoxious. But he wasn't. He was just like, he welcomed me like I was one of them, in which I was one of his teammates, and he knew my name, and I was just like, okay, it was that. I mean, I was only there for maybe like 6 hours, and he knew my name already. So I guess that just goes to show you how important I think, he felt that, he needed to know everybody's name on the team to work to, I guess, get along with people and actually get the best out of them.
I think to me, it's like the professionalism.
Right.
Like these guys are masters at their craft.
For sure.
True masters. And it's 360 all day, every day, from the training to the film study to knowing the new guy that just walked through the locker room. That's insane. How did you end up in Los Angeles? How did that happen?
So I got drafted to so in 2020, the COVID year was crazy. So that's the year I came out of. That was my draft year, 2020. So I go to the combine. I did well, and now it's late April, so now it's draft day. I knew the first day I wasn't going, so I knew day 2 I'll probably have a shot at going, because I know my agent was telling me you could probably go to maybe the 4th to 7th round. So I was like, okay. And then when day 2 didn't happen, I was like, day 3, I was in Cecilia. I was at my sister's house, and I was sweating. I remember everybody had food. I really didn't want to party, but it was like they had food and everything. And I just remember, like, I was nervous. I was like, man, I was watching the TV and people was getting drafted, and I was just like, man, like, I hope I get drafted, right? Yeah. And I was just like, oh, man, what if I don't? They got food here. They got people. Right. I'm just like, oh, man. I remember it was getting to, like, the 6th round. And I was just like, man, they got one more round to go. My palms are sweating. My shirt feel like it's soaking wet. I'm just like, I'm uncomfortable here. You know what I mean? So I stood up. I went outside. My phone started ringing. It was an unknown number. I was like, I picked it up. It was the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was like, hey, Ray, how you doing, man? Like, I was like, oh, how you doing? I'm thinking this is going to be the moment.
Right.
He was like, nah, we just doing our due diligence, man. We think you're a great player, but I'm trying to convince our head coach and GM to pull the trigger to draft you. But if they don't, we would like to offer you a futures contract to come to the team. I was like, okay. So I'm thinking this the moment, but I'm outside, like no one around me. I'm by myself. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just like, okay. So I go back in the house. Now it's the 7th round, and now my hopes and everything just like, it's down. I'm real down right now because I want to get drafted, but if I don't, it's still okay. But anyway, so I'm in there, and I finally get the call. It was Tampa Bay. It was Bruce Arians on the phone, and Jason Lynch is he's the GM right now. But Bruce Arians called me, and he was like, and he talked fast. He's like, Raymond, you ready? I'm like, ready for what? He's like, I was like, yo, you ready to be that's Tampa Bay Buck? And I was like, Oh my God. I just remember the whole house, my mom, my dad, my brothers, my sister, everyone was just screaming. So I didn't hear not a word. I didn't hear not one single word they was talking about on the phone. Like, imagine being in that moment. You have, the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers talking to you. You can't hear anything.
Right.
And I was just the only thing I remember was saying, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
I'm in.
Yes, sir." Right. I'm just saying this the whole time, and I'm crying. And I see everybody else crying, and I was just like, "Wow, that was crazy." So I was like, "Man, I really got drafted." And then I watched it on the TV. They had my highlights. And I was like, "Oh, like this is me.
That's me.
That's me. I made it. I'm
Yeah.
here." So it was
Right.
like, whew, a big bear jumped off my back. I finally had my appetite back. I could eat. I was like, "Man, it's amazing." And then I remember they calling me back. I think after the draft, they was like, "Hey Ray, like go enjoy this with your family, man. Like you earned it." But it was like this is only the beginning, and I was like, okay, cool. So I go there. I go to training camp.
Did you know that at that time that was only the beginning? At that point when you were drafted, did you say I made it, or you knew there was a lot more work to do?
No, I knew. I was like, man, like I'm going to a team with Tom Brady. You got Mike Evans. I'm like, hold up. I'm like, man, these guys been in the league for 10 plus years. Tom Brady, 20 years. I'm like, wow, like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of pressure, but it's also a lot of work. And I just knew that. And I remember maybe like a month later, they sent the playbook, and it was on like a Microsoft tablet. It was really fancy. I logged into it, and I saw how in depth it was. And
You're still at home at this point?
oh yeah, because it was COVID, so we couldn't go anywhere.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Do you normally report to the team if it wasn't COVID?
Yeah. So normally, what happened was after you get drafted, the next 3 days you would go to what's called rookie mini camp.
Okay.
And it was only rookies. It would just be rookies. You would go through the I guess you would go work out. They would actually see you. You would run some plays, and then after that, that's when the vets would come in. The vets would come in, and they would start what you call OTAs. OTAs is they just lifting weights, running, and they would run the plays. You know what I mean? And shorts and a shirt, and helmets. But that didn't happen because of COVID, so everything got pushed back. So I was having Zoom meetings with my running back coach, just trying to learn the playbook.
How intense was that? Learning the professional playbook.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Obviously it's a lot of details in it, but for my position, man, I broke everything down as I've been doing in college with my head coach Billy Napier. Now he's with Florida Gators. He really prepared me for that. So it wasn't like I was shocked. It was like
y'all ran a complex system at
right.
UL.
So I already knew what it was, and even I can go back to the I want to say when this was. This was in February. They have what you call the combine. So I'm at the combine, and at the combine, you go through all these interviews with every team, the position coach, and maybe if they really like you, you might talk to the head coach and GM. So what happens is they show you how. So they'll teach you a play. They'll teach you their play, right? They'd be like, hey, this is a running play from the Tennessee Titans. This is how we do it. And then they'll teach you one of their pass plays. And then the coach would be like, he will sit back and he'd be like, now teach me one of your plays from college. How to block it up, who's the line blocking, who's the D line gotta get, what's the concept, what's your aiming point, what's your steps, the whole nine. And then after you show him your play, he'd be like, now teach me the two plays that I taught you. Right? So they want to test you, they want to test your mind, see if you can retain information and be able to speak the language that they speak. And so I already knew that. So I was good. I was ready to go. So but once I got to Tampa, that's when everything shifted. And because we got to meet Tom Brady and actually run plays with him and learn from him and just be around the whole team.
Now, I'm a football fan, and I don't know if I could handle being in the same room as Tom Brady. I mean, what was it like playing with Tom Brady?
I think it was, for me, it wasn't. The first couple of days, I was like extremely nervous because I didn't want to piss him off. You know what I mean? Because he came in there, he had some big old cleats, big old boots. He had a jug of water, and he's walking around, it's almost like an aura when you see him. You're like, wow, like, is this man glowing or something? It's like he's different. But I remember being in meetings and so we had because when you report, it was the rookies and the quarterbacks report before the entire team. So it was just the rookies at first. So he was throwing the ball to me, and I remember I ran a flat route, just is 3 yards, or it can be 5 yards depending on which system you're in. But I ran that route at 2 yards, right? Not thinking nothing of it. And Tom ripped me like from I think this was like day 2 of the camp. He was like, day 2, he was like, Raymond, you gotta run this route at 3 yards. If not at 3 yards, then I'm not gonna throw you the ball. And I just remember sitting back, I'm jogging back, and I see him like looking at me, and he's giving me everything. I'm just like, okay. And then, sure enough, I ran the route right. He threw me the ball, and then I was like, well, damn, that's all I gotta do. I just gotta do the right thing, and he gonna give me the ball. So I think from that point forward, I was like, man, you know what? I see how imperative this is to him, and obviously it gotta be that way for me. So I have to lock in and do everything right because he very detail oriented. He gonna make you do certain things. I remember I was running a burst route, just 5 yards and burst across the field. He was like, hey, I need you to like finesse it a little bit. Even if you can't get to the 5 yards, get to like maybe 3 or 4, but I need you to finesse it and get open. Because I know he say, I know you fast, but stop trying to be a robot. I need you to finesse and get open. And I remember doing it. I remember he threw me the ball. He was like, you see? So I was just like, he was instilling confidence in me. And I remember I was like, man, this is Tom Brady. Like I watched him on TV. That was my favorite team growing up was the Patriots. I was like, wow, now I'm on this team. And it was just like, man, I see why they won so much because he was demanding of everybody.
And you're like Kevin Falk.
Right. And right. And it was crazy. I never mentioned Kevin Falk to him because I was just so rated to, I wanted to earn his trust and build a bond with him and then, talk about how I grew up, from a small town next to Karen Crow, which was Kevin Falk but I never got the chance to actually have that conversation with him.
Yeah. And then when Tom tells you something, he's probably right.
Oh yeah. Like 10 times out of 10, he's right.
The man he was in his 40s and you were 22?
Yeah, I was 22. He was 42. I was like, man, like
the man's 20 years older than you.
It's like, dog, you could be my dad almost. Like,
at
what?
Least.
Come on, bro. And I was just seeing him perform and do what he do and still throw the ball 6 to 7 yards, man. Throw it with precision, like he was on point. I was just like, wow. And then I also remember this was like later on in the camp. This was like probably like August 27. Like this is probably like one of the last days of camp before we actually start the season. And I remember we was going against the defense and Devin White and Devontae David, they was tearing us up. We couldn't move the ball. We was doing a 2-minute drill. We couldn't move the ball. And it was hot as piss in Tampa Bay. I'm talking about so hot. Your clothes were soaked. Your cleats were soaked. You was walking and it was like, psh, psh. Oh, I'm like, man, it was soaking wet, right? It was hot. And you couldn't move the ball, so everybody frustrated. Bruce Arians, he's like Ray, like a crawfish. He would never walk. He would be in like a little golf cart yelling at people. Red as hell. He had a white beard, so he looked like Santa Claus. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? He looked like Santa Claus. Tom Brady pissed off. We can't move the ball. It's hot as hell. The defense chirping. I'm a rookie, and I'm just looking like, man, we got to do something. But I can't say nothing because I'm just a rookie. You know what I mean? So then I remember Tom he pulled a whole offense together. He was like, Mike Evans, you need to catch the damn ball. And I was like, damn, you talking to Mike like that? And Mike was just like, Mike was on a knee and he had his helmet down. He was on a knee. He was like, you could see the sweat coming down, burning his eyes. And I'm looking at Mike, and Mike was like, yeah, Tom, I got you. And I remember, I was like, damn, like these are the best of the best players in the world. Frustrated right now, trying to figure it out. It's camp. It's late August. It's hot as hell, and Tom's still demanding the best out of you. And I just remember that. I was like, man, that's what it takes to be the best. It's
amazing that practice was that intense. I mean, you talked about Aaron Donald. You talking about Tom Brady getting on Mike Evans' ass. Like, why is practice so important? It doesn't.
Because you practice how you play. I remember Coach Napier in college. I remember he telling him, he was like, make practice hard, make it harder than the game. And I was like, man, I never thought about it like that. Because once you practice hard, you practice how you play the game. By the time you get to the game, it's like, I already done this in practice. I already know what to do. I already know how to react. You already put your body through that strain. You already like you have already exhausted yourself and fatigued your body. So now in the game is like second nature. This is because in a game you get timeouts, you get commercial breaks, you get you get water, and you're not like in practice you can run a play, and if you don't like it, you got to run it again. But in a football game, you don't get second chances. Just one play and move on. You know what I mean? So I just, I think practicing how you play makes everything much smoother for game time.
There was a debate on whether it was Brady or Belichick who was the true genius behind the championships. And then Brady comes along and wins another championship with Tampa Bay. Mm-hmm. And so I think everybody kind of understands that. And Belichick really hasn't done anything. Now he's unemployed. Mm-hmm. What about Tom Brady that you saw led to all those championships?
I think it was his I think how smart he was. Because he wasn't the most athletic. Because even when you see him, he's just maybe 6'5", 6'6". Yeah, but he's obviously tall, but he's not the biggest. He don't have not one vein sticking out his body. It ain't like he's he looked like DK Metcalf or anything. He's he's just a regular old white guy that can throw the football, but he's really smart though. He can break down the defense. He knows what the defense is trying to accomplish, but he know how to beat them to their spots. You know what I mean? And just seeing him watching film and just the way he operate, man, just how, like I say, he's very demanding of himself, but of his peers and of his teammates as well. So
and when the lights get the brightest,
he shine the most. He shine the most, man. He don't get tired. It's like it's almost like Patrick Mahomes. It's like you think you got him, but you don't. It's always another a rabbit in a hat. They're pulling something out and they're gonna make something happen.
Speaking of ice in the veins. How do you catch a kickoff or a punt in a dome or with 70,000 people watching you?
Yeah, that was tough, man. I think
how do you do it?
I think the the kickoff return is easy. It just comes straight to me. You know what I mean? But he's coming in hot now, but it's coming straight to me. Now the punt return is the most difficult thing, I think.
Waving my arm.
Yeah, but even if you wave, you still got to catch it now. It's still coming down like a hot potato, and it's coming down real hard. And it depends on who's kicking it. So if it's a right-footed punter, the ball's going to turn over left. You know what I mean? So if he going to kick it from the right, it's going to spin left. But it's all type of stuff. You have to read if the ball's turning up or if the ball's turning down. But if it's a left-footed punter, that's when the ball can go anywhere. It can fall left, it can fall right, it can fall 10 yards, it can go deep. You just don't know. And I just think that was one of the hardest things for me to learn at first. But I remember being in Los Angeles, and Cooper Kupp came up to me, and he was like, "Hey Ray, like," because obviously he was the punt returner, but they didn't want Cooper Kupp returning punts because it's Cooper Kupp.
It's Cooper Kupp.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro. So he came up to me. He was like, "Look, this is gonna be your job, but we're gonna need you to work on it every day in practice." He said, "You're gonna need to catch about maybe 30 balls a day off the foot, not the jugs. The jug machine is just for warm ups because the ball's coming straight to you, but off the foot is where you're gonna do it in the game. Punters punt off the foot and it's spin a certain way." So he was like, "I need you to just beat the ball to the spot." Catch it in the air, catch it with make sure that your pinkies are together. And he was teaching me how to catch it. I was just like, wow. So once he broke it down to certain phases of how to catch it, it made it 10 times easier.
Yeah, and then they let all these damn Australians in.
Right.
And they add a whole different level to the kicking game.
Right.
With the rotation of the ball, and some of them kick knuckleballs, end over end balls. Like, how do you catch that?
Repetition. The more reps you get, the more reps you do, the better you get at it. Because at first, like, you can do the regular kicks, but once the Australians, they start doing these knuckleballs, or what they call it, they call it like a helicopter, because the ball spin like the helicopter. That's the one that probably like is the most difficult to catch. because you don't know where it's gonna go. Like it can be like you can beat the ball to the spot. You might think it's coming to the 10-yard line, but it might go to the 8-yard line or the 50. It just don't. You can't predict it. It's like, man. So those I wouldn't catch those. I would go Peter. Like everybody get the hell out of the way, because these are too hot, and you never want to put your team at risk of muffing the punt, and now the other team got the ball. So
are you nervous when you go out there?
No. At first I was nervous, but the more reps I got, it became like second nature. It was like, okay, just make sure I just beat the ball to the spot and catch it. It became second nature.
Did you play a full season in Tampa Bay, or did you move to L.A.? That's your first season.
Right. So I didn't. So the story about that, it was like I said, I was doing well in camp with Tampa Bay, getting first team reps with being next to Tom Brady and stuff. So I was like, okay, so I'm obviously doing well for me to be getting first team reps. I'm a 7th-round draft pick. I really don't.
Who was the starting running back at that time?
It was Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones was the starting running back. But
the returning starter, I guess.
Right. But but he was getting bulk of the reps. But when it would come to third down, I could catch better than him. So when Tom liked the way I caught the ball and got open, and so I guess he was, gaining some trust with me being in there. So I was like, okay, cool. So, but that same. I want to say that same week, man, like late in August, Leonard Fournette, he was playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they released him. So I'm like, okay. So they released him. Very next day, Tampa signed him. So I'm like, oh, my God. So I'm like, okay.
And how do you find this out? Just on
Instagram. Okay. So I go home after training camp.
You get your news just like me.
Right, exactly. So I'm there. I'm in my hotel room. I'm just looking over the plays for tomorrow. I'm like, okay, cool. Just trying to kick my feet up, rest, and hydrate. So I see Leonard Fournette signed by Tampa Bay. I'm like, man, we play the same position. This is I'm like, man, I don't know how this is going to go. So they signed him. Sure thing. I go to practice that day, and my reps were cut. I'm like, wait a minute, man. I was getting a lot of reps. Now I'm not getting as much reps. But Leonard Fournette wasn't even in the building yet.
Wow. So
now this is like, I want to say the final cuts. This is the final cuts now. And, they called me in the room. He was like, hey, Ray. This was Jason Lynch, the general manager. He was like, hey, Ray. He had his big old office, and I walked in there. He's like, man, like, we really loved you, man. We really love what you did on, with Tom. And, you had some great film. But, we signed Leonard Fournette. We got a bigger body, more experience. So we think we're gonna keep him, and we're gonna sign you to the practice squad. And I was like, okay. You know what I mean? I didn't want to let my emotions show at that point. But I was just like, man, I've been here all camp. Did everything right, worked hard. I stayed late after practice. I put in extra work. I was like, okay. But that's the business of the NFL. That's the business of the beast. So I was like, okay, cool. So I remember I went to talk to my running back coach, and he told me the same thing. He was like, just keep your head up, man. Keep working. We love you, obviously, because we want to keep you. So I was like, okay, cool. I left, go to my hotel room. My agent called me. He was like, hey, heard the news, man. Heard you. They want to sign you to the practice squad, but your name have to go through waivers first, and whoever claim you, whoever put in a claim for you, they can get the first pick at getting you. And I had like 3 claims. I think it was the Rams, the Broncos, and I want to say Tennessee Titans had put in a claim for me. So he was like, so do you want to – so now I go to sleep. So now I wake up the next morning. I'm going to Tampa Bay facility to sign my futures contract, which is the practice squad. I go to sign that contract. My agent called me while I'm in the big office. I'm about to sign it. He was like, "Hey, I think you should put the pen down. You want to put on a Los Angeles Rams helmet?" I'm like, "What?" He was like, "No, for real." I'm like, "Hell yeah, I want to put on a." I'm like, "Hell yeah!" I'm like, "Come on." So he's like, "All right, look." He's like, "I'm gonna call you back in about 20 minutes." 20 minutes turns to like
puts the pen down.
I put it down. So now everybody looking at me like, what are you doing? Right? Like, this is an opportunity. He's like, so I just got up. I went and talked to Jason. I was like, hey, Jason, I think you know, I think I'm gonna be going to a different team. I probably got claimed, and he was like, okay. And I walked out.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I
It's
still
the business,
right.
right?
I just walked out. So, like I said, my agent said he would call me back in 20 minutes. 20 minutes turned to like 6 hours. I'm like, yo, what is going on? So now I'm back in my hotel. I'm like, man, he better call me. So he called me. He was like, all right, I got you, man. We got your flight first thing in the morning at 5 a.m. Out of Tampa. You going to Los Angeles. You got a contract 3 years, $2 million. I'm like, oh. Okay,
let's go.
Let's go. So I got on the plane. I packed
And you're
my
looking
bags.
around. You look around. You're in a hotel or an apartment.
I'm in a
and
hotel.
You're like, okay, I need a backpack. I guess I need a toothbrush, and I'm getting on a plane. I'm going to LA for my new team. Like, how crazy is that? If you think about it, it's a crazy business.
It was that crazy, and that's what happened. I got my bags. I went to the airport the next morning, and I was in LA. That quick.
Wow. All right, let's keep it rolling. Get to LA.
So yeah, I mean, I get to LA, man, and it was just like, whoa, like I'm here, I'm on a new team, but obviously it's still COVID, so you have to take a COVID test.
Oh man, how aggravating was that?
But imagine my rookie year, I took a COVID test every day.
Unbelievable.
Every day from August to January, every day. There was no preseason that COVID year.
Wow.
Right. There was no preseason that COVID year.
Dude,
so
you hit a bad year to come out.
That's what I'm saying, man. I'm like, man, I got
the fan experience was different. The training camp.
God.
I mean,
it was a ghost town. It was just uni teammates.
Because normally training camp is pretty. It's a fan friendly experience.
Yeah.
You get your.
Yeah,
Maybe it's hey, somebody wants you, Tom Brady. Somebody wants you to sign this and put that in your locker. Keep it. That's just me.
Man, it was crazy, man. And I just remember, like, dang, like. It was no fans. It was, and even at the games, it was no fans. It was like you could hear a pin drop in there. I'm like, it was weird.
The regular season.
Regular season.
Wow.
I remember my first game playing. We played against it was the Rams versus the Bills. I was like, okay, so but we played in Buffalo, so it was like early September, but it was still kind of chilly. It wasn't as cold, but it was still kind of chilly. I remember that was my first time suiting up, first time playing. And I remember I was the kickoff returner. So I remember the ball coming to me. I caught it, started running. I was like, ooh, so I got tackled. I'm like, oh, I'm here.
Yeah.
But it felt like a scrimmage because it was no fans.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like weird. And,
like a junior high game or something.
Yeah, like, bro, there was nobody in the stadium. I was like, what the hell? It was weird. And
but you missed the whole training camp with the Rams. You missed that opportunity to get a rapport with those players.
Nah, but I remember, bro. So now we get Matthew Stafford in, and so now we go to OTAs. OTAs is usually the beginning, the middle of April. So the team report, we're working out. We got this. This is my first time get to see Matthew Stafford in person, and he trying to learn everybody's name. And obviously, he been playing in Detroit for like 10 plus years, so he have to learn a new place. He have to learn new faces. He have to learn new coaches. So it was like, I guess it was foreign to him as well too. So he trying to pick it up on the fly. But he was cool, man. Him and his wife, Calais, they was both cool. Just learning him getting to know him from April to I want to say June, and then that's when we broke off. For the break, and then we came back at the beginning of July to start our training camp.
Well, those guys are both connected to where you're going in Detroit.
Right, for sure.
And I know Matt Stafford's a tough SOB for all the licks that he took in Detroit.
He is, man. He is tough now, tough as nails.
What happened in that season? You got hurt, right?
Right. So I go there, man. I remember coming into training camp. Well, I was training in Arizona. Because I wanted to train somewhere it was hot, where I can really run hills and just fatigue my body, just get ready to put my body through NFL season and get ready to play. And I remember
you have private coaching for this, or you do this on your own?
No, this was private. This was private. My agent set it up, so I spent like a month. I want to say a month in Arizona. just preparing myself, getting ready to go play some football. And I remember our starting running back Cam Akers had got hurt, so it was a question mark at the running back position going into training camp. And I remember, my running back coach at the time, Thomas Brown, he texted the thread. He was like, "All right, fellas, our starter went down, so it's up for grabs." I remember that. And I'm driving back from Arizona. I'm just thinking to myself, like, all right, it's time to go. This is my opportunity. I got to make this happen. So I go into training camp. I'm feeling good, man. I'm doing everything right. I'm being very productive too. I remember our first game. We played the Chargers. I almost scored a touchdown. I think I had like 2 punt returns for like 50 yards each, and so I was going to win that job. I was going to be the punt returner and kick returner. So I had the special teams coordinator chopping at a bit, and he was loving me. The team was loving me. I was just like, man, this gonna be my home. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna do it right. Then the next game, we played the Raiders. We played the Raiders in the next game, and I remember I was a team captain. I remember that Sean McVay named me a team captain for that game. So I was pumped up. I was like, man, it's my second season. Like, I'm team captain. I'm obviously doing something right to be named team captain for that game. So I'm like, okay, cool.
That's amazing.
So I go into the game. I'm playing well. And then I remember this third quarter, I caught a screen pass. And I broke a tackle. I think I got like 6 yards on the play. So as I'm about to get up off the ground, a D tackle rolled over on my foot, and my foot was caught in a turf. So he rolled over on my foot, and I remember screaming, and I was like, damn. So I tried to get up, and I couldn't. I tried to plant my foot down, and I couldn't plant my foot, and I immediately just sat back down on the turf, and I started crying. I knew something was wrong.
Wow.
But I'm thinking, I'm trying to be optimistic. I'm like, maybe just a high ankle. I can recover. The team loved me. I'm gonna make the team. I'm gonna play well this season. I'm just, I'm gonna sit out the next preseason game, get healthy, and play. So they put me on the stretcher. I get to the sideline. They put me on the golf cart. They was like, Ray, we need to go take some X-rays. I was like, all right. So once I get that, I get back there. The doctor looking at me, and they was trying to take off my cleat, but they couldn't because it was so tight. So they had to cut it. They had to cut it.
Your foot was swollen already.
My foot was swollen like a potato. And I just remember the doc looking at me, and he shook his head. And I started crying. I knew what that was. I started crying like hard, like a baby. And I remember he took my foot. He took my foot, and he put the bones back in place. Like I heard it. He put the bones back in place, and then once he let it go, my foot just fell. I was like, ugh. So it made me cry more.
Were you in pain at the time?
I wasn't in pain because my adrenaline was going.
Yeah.
Like I was just playing out there. I was doing well too. It was like, man. And then I knew it. Like I knew it was gonna be a hard season. I knew I would have to go through recovery and, just try to get back to running, to walking, to learning how to play football again. And I was just like, man, that's tough because I was right there.
And you're a speedster. Your feet are everything.
My legs are my money makers. My legs are my babies. I've never hurt anything on my legs before. So I was just like, I had injury. I had a shoulder injury. But that's whatever. You know what I mean? I can bench. I can get that back stronger. But my legs, I was like, these are my go-getters. I can't mess these up. And when it happened, I was just like, this is some BS.
You were probably one of the fastest running backs in the league at the time.
Right. I was
like at the combine. Like what was your 40 time?
It was a 4.42. I think I was ranked top 3. I was ranked top 3.
That's super fast for a running back.
Right. And
that's receiver speed.
Right. And I was coming out the combine feeling good. I was fast. Some teams clocked me on their hand time at like a 4.28 or 4.31. So I was really running fast, and I was like, man, like I'm feeling real good. But once the injury happened, it was just like I had to learn how to walk again, learn how to
talk me through what happens. Do you reach out to your family, your friends? Do you internalize it? Did you have to deal with that all on your own in California? What did you? I mean, I'm sure you questioned everything at that point, your whole existence, your whole career, everything to this point. How did you get through that?
Well, I remember the next day I had surgery the very next day, and so coming out of surgery, I remember our training, our train, our head trainer, Reggie Scott. He had to come pick me up from the hospital, bring me back to my apartment. Now I have a scooter now, one of those little scooters where I gotta put my leg on it and scoot. So I had a scooter. I remember that, and I was just like, bro, like just yesterday I was running fast. Now I have a whole scooter. I can't even move. Um, so I remember the first week of rehab, it was just like I can barely move my foot. It was just mainly just stem. They put some stem to try to like get some of that blood going. And I was just sitting on the table. I would see my teammates going out for practice. I was just like, wow, I wish that was me. Like I wish I was going out to practice. And I remember at the time, um, I was alone. So I was like, man, like I don't have anybody to be there with me. I'm like, and so then like my girlfriend was there, and then my son came, so that made it a little better. But then they had to leave again, and once they left, I was trying to take a shower by myself. I would have to. They gave me some type of little stuff to put over my foot because I couldn't get my foot wet. I'm like leaning in the shower, just trying to clean myself. I'm like, man, I couldn't drive, so I had to Uber to to the training facility to get my rehab. It was just,
Dude, people don't understand what athletes go through,
yeah, yeah,
and after an injury.
yeah. It was
I
crazy,
mean,
man.
I'm sure you dealt with depression. I'm sure you dealt with all kinds of issues.
And I think like I was so isolated. I was so by myself because I would go to rehab. I would see my teammates for maybe like 2 hours, and then
Gone.
I gotta go back home.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting down watching TV. I would play the game, but at some point it got boring.
Right.
And I was in my head and I was depressed. And I remember I would like family would call and friends would call and I would just ignore it because I didn't want to talk. I was by myself. I was hurting. I was like, man, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
And I think one time, one of my friends, he texted me because obviously he was trying to get a hold of me, but I wasn't answering the phone. I was doing it on purpose because I didn't want to talk. And he was like, bro, he was like, you got to stop like beating yourself up. You know, like we know you're going through it. It's all right. It's okay to talk. It's okay to vent. You need somebody to be there for you. And I just remember after hearing him say that, I was like, whew, I let everything out. I was able to talk, and talking made it a lot better. But I mean, I couldn't walk for 3 months. I mean, I was on a scooter for 3 months. You know what I mean? And then and I think the doctors took off my stitches too early. I think it was like you're supposed to leave it on for 21 days. I think they took it off in like 14. So it had like a little hole. Like you could see blood. So they thought I had an infection. So I had to like, they had to put like a PICC line inside of me, and I had to
Oh my God.
I was like an old man. I was like injecting like medicine in my body 3 times a day, and I couldn't walk. And I was just like, oh.
Infections have killed careers, man.
I'm like, man, this is not it, bro. I was like depressed. For real.
And did you feel like you were letting people down?
No, I didn't feel like I was letting people down. I didn't feel like that. I just felt like I wanted my career to take off.
Yeah.
This my
and it
dream.
was right there.
It was literally right there. I'm like, this is my dream. I worked hard. This is what I put all the chips in the center of the table. Like, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
And I was that close, and you know, an injury took it away and it hurt me, and I was just like, I was hurt because that year when we won the Super Bowl, you know, we won the Super Bowl that year, so it was just like I would have been a part of that, which I was a part of that, but I didn't feel like I was because I didn't play. So it was like, you know, and even though they try to make me, they try to make me feel a part of. Like I got the helmet, I got the jersey, I got the ring. I was there for everything, but I wasn't playing. I wasn't in the locker room. I wasn't taking those flights with those guys to go play on the road or actually practicing and going through like doing all the dirty work. I was just in the training room looking outside the window, wishing I was out there.
And there's not many people who can relate to you in that situation.
It's not, and everybody would tell me like, man, it's all right, man. Like you in the NFL, you have money. I'm like, bro, none of that matters because when you by yourself in a room and you're hurting,
right?
None of that matters. You only want to do what you want to do, and that's play football. You want
Right.
to do what you love, and I couldn't do that, and I couldn't walk, and I don't think nobody understood that. They were just like, well, bro, you got money, bro. I'm like,
yeah. Do they understand what California taxes look like?
Yeah, they don't. They don't. I remember. You know what?
Tampa Bay was nice.
Tampa Bay was nice.
Florida was nice.
I remember that. I remember that.
They take a less chat. Less of that chunk.
You know what's crazy? I remember my signing bonus hitting my account in Tampa Bay, and I remember it was just like early in the morning, so I'm in the bed. It's like 6 a.m. I'm wiping my eyes. I'm about to get up to go brush my teeth and head to practice, and I remember I saw it on my notification. It says deposit. I'm like, oh, I clicked it, and once I saw those zeros, I was like, it feel good. It feel good not to have to, I guess, like worry about money, you know.
Wrapping up that season, you ended up at the Super Bowl. Tell me about that experience.
Oh man, it was crazy, man. Super Bowl was crazy. I'll give you a little inside story. So this is probably like, I want to say in November of that season. We lost, I think, every game in November that season, and obviously we had acquired Von Miller and OBJ at the time, and that's in November. So now in December we are clicking, we're clicking on all cylinders. We winning the games, and then now it's like late January, it's playoff time. And I remember Von Miller walking in the locker room. He had his replica of the Vince Lombardi Trophy of Super Bowl 50. So he put it down. He put it down in front of the whole locker room, and everybody was like, "Oh, Von, like Super Bowl trophy, like Von, what is that, Von?" And me, I'm looking like Super Bowl trophy. I'm like, "What's all right?" So Von was like, "If I want to get one of these, y'all need to lock in. I need y'all to, and like, if y'all hurting, go to treatment on time. If y'all need extra film, watch extra film. If y'all need to stay after practice, do this. He say that's the little thing that's gonna get you over the top in the playoffs." I remember that all so well, and then sure enough, man, we started clicking, bro. We first game we had the Arizona Cardinals. We beat them pretty good too. Second game was like it was a battle because I remember we played Tom Brady. We played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa Bay, and I remember like we started off hot. I think we was like 21-3. We was beating them. We was like, okay. I'm watching from home. I'm like, oh, we got this. We gonna. Sure enough, Tom Brady came back. It was like, I think they took the lead. It was 21-24.
Yeah,
we like,
ask the Saints about old Tom and Tampa Bay.
We like, I'm sitting down thinking to myself like, oh no, not again. Come on, bro. Sure enough, we pull it off. We won the game, and then now
that orange aura comes around him, and you're like, whoa, he's doing it again.
I'm like, bro, this dude here, like, he had me sweating. I'm like, man.
What was the final in that game? Do you remember?
I don't remember, but it's on the ring.
It's on the ring.
It's on the ring.
That's
so
the ultimate flex. Hold on, let me pull out my Super Bowl ring.
It was 30-27.
There you go. So it was a shootout.
It was a shootout, and then so I remember. Now this is the NFC Championship. We playing the 49ers, and we haven't beat the 49ers in the regular season. And obviously they in our division, so we have to play them twice. And old Kyle Shanahan, he's like a menace, bro. He just knows how to run some offensive plays and get guys open and score points. And for some reason, we couldn't beat him. So now this is our third time playing them. So this is the NFC Championship in SoFi Stadium. It's a home game. But it didn't feel like a home game because it was mostly 49er fans in the building.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm sitting in one of our suites. You know, I'm watching from the suite. And I'm just like, man, like it's a whole bunch of Raid people in here, a whole bunch of 49er jerseys. It was crazy. And I remember it was a close game, but we ultimately like we beat them. And so I go down to the field. So they had the presentation of the NFC Championship trophy. So and then they gave us the NFC hat championship. So we were like, man, we're going Super Bowl. So you got people with like the what you call that? There's like a newspaper saying, "Oh, we going to the Super Bowl." Like, all right, cool. So that was crazy. And then now you get 2 weeks to prepare for the Super Bowl. So now you got to go through the meetings, the media. You got to take a bunch of pictures. You got to do a whole lot of just a whole lot of stuff. And that was cool. That was really cool to be a part of that. But now this is the big day. It's game day. Super Bowl. We playing against the Bengals. And it was like, man, they got Jamar Chase, man.
Joey B, baby.
Freaking Joey, old Joe Burrow, man, and he was clicking on all cylinders. They had a really good team that year. Joe Mixon with the running back. Obviously, you got your receivers, man, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So they was loaded. They was loaded, bro. And I remember going into that game, I was like, I hope we win this game. I don't know if I'm gonna be back at another Super Bowl. We got to get it done. And I remember waking up that morning, I was feeling good. I was like, man, this is the day. Sure enough, we got, we pulled up to the stadium. There was cameras everywhere. I was like, man, it's like, imagine a whole bunch of, flashes just hitting you at once. It was just like, it was everywhere.
Surreal experience.
Right.
Huh?
And like the anticipation was real. It was like everything was just, I remember being on the sideline for the game and seeing just about any celebrity you can think of. Like it was LeBron James, it was Kanye West, it was anybody you can think of. It was just in there. And so sure enough, man, like it was a nail biter. It was a close game because I remember OBJ went down, and I remember watching that. Sure enough, bro, it came down to one of the last drives we had, and Cooper Kupp beat Eli Apple over the top to win the game. And then that's when we knew we won. The confetti came down. Obviously, they had people giving out the gear, the shirts, the hats. And I'm just walking. And you can go look at it on my Instagram. I have a live video of myself on there of me just walking and watching the confetti come down, watching my son jump in the confetti. And it was just crazy just to see, because they had to bring in the whole presentation.
Was that your favorite moment on a football field?
I think so. I think that was one of my favorite moments. But I also have another one. But that had to be number one for sure. For sure.
What's your next one?
My next one would be I'm in college, and I remember this is my sophomore year of college, and it's the first game of the season, and I'm the kickoff returner. First play, first game of the season. We playing Southeastern Louisiana. They kicked me the ball, and I caught it, and I scored a touchdown. The first play, it was a 100-yard touchdown. I remember that it was 100 yards. I caught it, ran, scored. The crowd going crazy. My teammates, they throwing water on the sideline. It was
first play of the first game. You scored a touchdown.
Atmosphere was crazy. I remember that. And then, sure enough,
Carter, you remember that? Carter's a big UL fan.
I
Buy
do.
his shirt, as you can't tell with the big red shirt.
So that was crazy. I caught I made the touchdown. And sure enough, we came back. I think it was like a 3. I think they scored a touchdown. Maybe they kicked the field goal. Something happened. So now I'm back there again. They kicked me the ball again. I score another touchdown. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I remember I was trending on Twitter that night.
I saw it on ESPN.
I'm like, bro,
I was in Baton Rouge and I saw it on Sports Center.
I'm like, bro, this is crazy.
I said, good for Ray.
I'm like, I'm going crazy. It felt like, and then for like the next 2 weeks, I felt like the man of the town. I was like, wow, like.
Well, because people don't return kickoffs to a touchdown anymore.
Right.
And you did 2
in one game.
In one game.
One game.
One of which is the opening kickoff.
Right.
What was the best part of playing at UL?
Best part, I would say it was home to me, man. It was I got to play in front of my family. Obviously had my mom, my dad, my siblings there to watch me play. And every home game felt like being in Cecilia again, because it was like I could go out there for warm-ups, and I can see my family there before the stadium fills. So I can see my family. I can spot where they at before the game, and I'm warming up. I'm feeling good. And now the whole team go back in. Now the whole team come back out. Now it's time to game. You come out with the smoke. You come out, you bust out the flag. All right, so now the stadium is lit. Is everybody here? You got the popcorn going. You smell everything. So now I'm like, okay. So
is that why you went to UL? Because it was close to home?
I went to UL because my dad in high school, he had whenever I was in high school, he had back surgery, and I remember he had gotten to this bad 18-wheeler wreck, and I remember he was like really down, and he couldn't come watch me compete in any of my track meets because obviously sitting on the bleachers with a back, it was terrible, and I just remember I'm like, man, like I can't leave home, my dad's hurt, my mom she needs my mom needs somebody, and obviously me being there and me being successful, it I guess it brought the family all together. They can come watch me. They can cheer me on. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna stay home.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stay home. I'm gonna roll the dice.
And you're happy. Home. You're happy with your decision.
Best decision that I've made, being 17 years old. That's the best decision I've made.
Yeah, because UL prepared you for the NFL.
They did. I remember my first head coach was Mark Husband. That was
Carter's laughing.
That was crazy. That was pretty
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. HUD is obviously one of the reasons why UL became relevant in football after years of just sadness. Hit a few of those NOLA bowls, some good success. But I've talked to some boys who were in that locker room. It was some wild times under the Hudspeth era. He gets fired, and then Napier takes over. So my question was, he's kind of that Saban disciple, more disciplined. But what was the biggest difference going from a Hudspeth locker room to a Napier locker room?
I would say the biggest difference would be, Mark Husband was almost like a character in a movie. It was crazy. It was like he would walk around with all his championship rings on, and he was swole, and he would wear a tight shirt. It was like the Hulk walking around that thing. And he was red too, so it was just like.
You seem to play for a lot of red coaches.
I do. I don't know why. So it was just like, man, and HUD would talk to you in like third person almost. I'm like, man, what the hell is this guy? And it was just like weird. And he would walk around, like I said, he would shake your hand, and you have a big old ring on. I'm just like, all right, coach, we know you won. We know you the guy. You don't have to wear the ring all the time. But playing for Billy, it was just like, man, like I could relate to Billy. Like he was, like you said, he was a coach's son. His dad was a coach in high school, and Billy was a quarterback. Obviously at a lower level college, but everything was fundamentals. And he came from a Nick Saban tree because he was the receivers coach at Alabama, and he was also coach. He was the offensive coordinator for
Clemson, right?
Clemson, yeah. So he was with Dabo Sweeney. So
he's got the pedigree.
Yeah, he has it. And we knew it from day one. So like day one, he came in. He brought in a nutritionist. We was like, damn, we have a nutritionist. Like Mark Husband, we just had McDonald's and Cane's. Like it was just, here you go. You know what I mean?
Lath is rolling his eyes back there. He's so obsessed with nutrition. One of the questions he wanted me to ask you is, how do you eat? We'll get to that later. That's awesome. Well, look, the proof is in the pudding. You guys won a lot of games, and then he goes on to coach Florida and makes $10 million a year or something ridiculous.
Yep.
What do you think is the biggest? We played high school in Cecilia. All right, time of our lives. All right, we played with a lot of good kids, a lot of studs. We played against a lot of studs.
Right.
How do you get from high school to college? What separates a stud in high school to a college athlete?
I think it's being disciplined. I think it's all about how you approach, about how you, like, what type of goals you set for yourself. I feel like in high school it's so much easier to be the guy, to be the star, to be the man of the town, because it's easy. It's high school, man. Not you have to go to class, and after class, the coaches they trying to teach you something, but they don't really have that much time. As much time to like instill, like, hey, you need to do this on this play. You got to be locked in. And like I say, man, in high school, you might have maybe one or two guys on the team that's like really out, that's like really better than everybody else. And I just feel like you have to be like I said, you have to be really, really um, dedicated and disciplined on your craft. So I remember whenever I was in high school, obviously I was one of the best players on my team. But I was also the hardest worker. I remember I would outwork everybody. And then I just remember our head coach Terry Martin. I remember one time he told me he was like Ray, like this rep, you don't have to do this rep. I know this is the last rep. But I think we was doing it because somebody had one of the big guys didn't make his time. I think we was running 110s and it was hot. It was in the summer. I think we had like 13 110s. Some and he was like, "Hey, you don't have to do this rep," because I remember my ankle was hurting. He was like, "Hey, you don't have to do this rep." I was like, "No, I'm doing this rep." I'm like, "I'm gonna do this rep because this is gonna set the tone." And I would always win. I would win every rep. I run everybody. I would just try to be the hardest worker because I want to be like, I'm the guy. I'm gonna make the touchdowns, but I'm also gonna be the hardest worker, and I'm also gonna hold everybody accountable. And I just think that's what's gonna separate the guy that want to go to college and compete on that level. You have to really be disciplined. You have to really want it. It can't just be about, oh, I'm the guy. I'm gonna score touchdowns. But what about working hard? What about being the first person in the classroom as well? What about making sure you prepare for the ACT, take the exams on times, take it as many times as you need if you don't get the score that you want. What about study hall? Like, bro, it's a lot of things that you have to, you know, that you have to want to do. It's a lot of effort that you have to put into it. I just think most of the kids, man, they get excited with Instagram. They see stuff on Instagram. They see people with the money, with the jury. All that stuff is gonna come if you just do the little things. You put in the time. You do the work. You make sure your grades and your GPA is where it needs to be. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, like I remember when I first started getting recruited, and I remember the first coach that came in the building. It was from Southern Miss. It was a Southern Miss coach. He came in the building. He was like, "Ray, you got a 3.8 grade point average." He's like, "Man, like he gave me my first scholarship to college that same day." I remember he took me. I was in Miss Lanyo Matt class. He took me out of class. He was like, "I want to offer you a full scholarship to Southern Miss University," and I was like, I remember I was like, I was so happy. I went back to class. I was like, man, like this is what I worked hard for. This is it. And I was a junior in high school. Like, man, this is what I worked hard for, and everything was coming in line, falling in place for me. But it was all about doing the right things and always working hard and being diligent at your work.
And now that, and you hear Dion talking about it, now that NIL, transfer portal, the availability for scholarships for high school kids is even smaller.
It's tough, slim.
So how do you think that you're going to be a stud or good and not work hard, but not have the classroom to back it up and think you're going to go play at the collegiate level when they can go get the kid that they want that's probably better than you, more physically developed than you, has a proven commodity from a junior college? How do you think you're going to play D1?
I mean,
am I off base?
No,
there?
you are 100% correct, and I think like I'm gonna say this, man. The NIL definitely changed the college landscape of how you gonna be able to recruit players, how you gonna be able to go inside, like I say, a high school, a high school student, and talk to his family. You gotta sit in the living room and gotta be like, hey, like I want your son to come to my college. We're gonna mold him to be the man. We're gonna make sure he's gonna grow as a man. He's gonna do his schoolwork. He's gonna be on time. He's gonna obviously develop, but also become a better football player as well. And but it's gonna be real hard now because for one, they look at the NIL. They gonna try to get the big fish. They're gonna try to get the best players that doesn't have any I guess bad GPA or low scores on the ACTs. They're gonna go after the players that are got everything together. So I think that's my biggest message for students coming out of high school, for the players that come out of high school, man, just to make sure your grades are up to par, man, because there's a lot of players around this world that's always bigger than you, faster than you, better than you, but it's all about the opportunity that you give yourself. I think if you not putting your best foot forward in the classroom, how you gonna put your best foot forward on the field? It all that translate.
Yeah,
Trust
it's not just being eligible at the college level. Having the discipline to go to class and do well shows that you have the ability to think
right.
and show up and produce.
And also, this all goes down to even if you want to get drafted. Because I remember, because at UL they would have, cause obviously my draft class, we had Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt, he plays for the Dolphins right now. He was a second-round draft pick. Kevin Dotson, he actually played for the Los Angeles Rams right now. And me, the 7th-round pick. So this is one draft class from UL. And I remember being a freshman at UL, and they would have speakers come speak to the team. And it was like, out of this room of 110 players, maybe one of you might go to the NFL. And I'm 18 years old, sitting down in college, like, huh? One of us. And they had the numbers broken down. It was like .some%. I was like, wow. I'm like, man, I'm sitting back thinking to myself, I'm gonna be that one person. I'm thinking that in my head, right? But I wasn't the biggest because I think I came out of high school, I was like 175 pounds soaking wet. I'm like, man, I'm not the biggest, but I got a heart of a lion, and I'm fast. I'm gonna work my way to it. And 4 years later, I achieved my goal and got to the NFL. But it was just like, man, like that just goes to show you how hard it is to actually get to the NFL and how hard it is for players to make it to that next step, because it's a lot of other players around. It's a lot of other teams that have the same players just like you. You know what I mean? Like, so I
hundreds of universities.
Man, that's what I'm saying. And everybody trying to get a bite at the apple. It is all about how you what you do on your resume, man. You have to have everything in check.
There's only 32 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Only.
Right, maybe one backup. The Saints always had one backup.
Right.
So what, you had 2 per team? Some
right.
carry 3.
Right.
Like, that is a very slim.
It's crazy. And I want to say this one more thing. I remember we would have NFL scouts come to our practice at UL. They would come check out the players, and I remember they would they wouldn't actually talk to the players, but they would have their little clipboard. They would look at you at practice. They would look at you in the weight room, and then they would leave. Then they would go. I remember Billy Napier was like, hey, like when they come in, they talking to everybody. They're talking to the custodians. They're talking to the training staff. Wow. They're talking to your teachers. So if you're not going to school, if you're not sitting I remember the deal was with Coach Napier, you had to sit in the first 2 rows of class. No muscle shirts, no slides, no hats on your head, no headphones, first 2 rows. And we have class checkers. They would come in class. They would see if you're in class. And if you're not in class, they would put your little tally mark, and then you would have to pay the consequence. So like I said, man, if you do things the right way, you will reap the benefits.
How do you get from college to the NFL?
So college, I remember going in college, man. I was really small, and I was fast, but I wasn't as big as the other players, because like you talk about NIL, they can just go get somebody from the transfer portal that already been in college, already been through a college weight program, already got the mass on the body, already know how to play football. I'm coming from high school trying to learn how to play college ball, right? So I get there, and I just, like I say, man, I locked in on my details. Just started gaining weight. Just making sure I would drink because I remember I had to drink a protein shake in the middle of the night. It would be like 3 a.m. I had to wake up, I have to chug it.
Wow.
I have to make my weight, and if I wouldn't make the weight, I would have to drink a lot of water, and I didn't want to feel bloated, so I had to make sure I gained the weight. Then I just had to hone in on the details of just playing my position, just learning how to play running back, because obviously in high school it's just natural talent, just tossing the ball, I'm outrun everybody.
I've seen many right. runs. Nobody could touch you.
That's what I'm saying. So it was easy, but once I got to college, I had to learn how to play football. Actually learn who the offensive linemen were blocking. I had to hone in onto all the details.
But in football, there's also an element of luck. I mean, you make your own luck, but you got to stay healthy. You got to have an open position. You got to be in the favor of the coaches. Like, there's so many variables, man. Football is such a tough sport.
It is. And I remember my first couple years with Mark Husband, I played running back my first year because he really liked me my first year for some reason. because Elijah McGuire was the starter, and then I was the backup. So I was playing my freshman year. I remember that, and then
Who was also an NFL back.
right, also, yeah, our running back room was loaded. But then I remember going into my second year. That's when Elijah Mitchell came, and he from Erath, and Eli was a stud. He came in there and just took the spot. Like he came in there and he was the guy. He was bigger. He knew how to run the football better than me. Obviously I was faster, but he just knew how to run the ball. He had that natural gift, and I was still learning it. He came in there, took it, and then I remember sitting back. That's my sophomore year. I was playing mainly special teams. And I was like, man, my odds of making the NFL not looking too good right now. I need to do something. I need to get some film. I need to work harder. So I remember they fired Hud after a bunch of scandals went down, and then we got Billy Napier, and Billy came in, and he told me he talked to the team, and he was like, we're gonna need 3 running backs. So they had Trey Ragers, they had Elijah Mitchell, and we're gonna need a third one. And I said to myself, I'm gonna be that third guy. I'll work everybody, and I'm gonna earn that spot. I'm gonna earn his trust. So I go into that, man. I remember I started hitting the weight room harder, started doing extra work, and then I remember the track coach came up to me. He was like, "Hey Ray, you want to run track this spring?" I gave it some thought, but then I brushed him off. Billy Napier came up to the head coach came up to me. He's like, "Ray, I think you should run track, man. Like it's gonna be good for you. You can get stronger. You can run faster." I'm like, "Coach, I don't know, man. Cause I'm thinking about. He said we're gonna need a third running back. I'm thinking like I need to put on some more weight. I need to, go through spring practice, learn the plays, learn his new system, earn his trust, and I did that. And I remember I won the hardest worker award or something like that in the spring. I did well that spring game, and sure enough, we reported to camp later that August, and I was third string running back. So I'm like, okay, cool. And now this is my junior year, so I started playing well, and I had an amazing junior year. I think I scored like 8 touchdowns, I had over 800 yards rushing, and I even broke a record. I had the longest rush in Cajun Fields, like 92 yards touchdown. So I just, like I said, man, once he told me that, he gave me the opportunity, I was like, I'm gonna be that third guy, and I just worked my tail off to earn that spot.
Whenever I want to talk about growing up in Cecilia for a second. Whenever I went to law school, I tell this story. I've told this story many times, but when I first went to LSU, I was like, small fish, big pond, very intimidating. Then I get to law school, and I feel like the dumbest guy there, right? Because all these people went to these fancy high schools and you had all these pedigrees, and I'm just a little old dude from Cecilia,
right?
But now you fast forward it and play it out, and I've done very well because I had something that a lot of those people didn't have. I was a dog, right? And I don't mean the bulldog. I just mean having the dog in me, right?
Right, for sure.
And you definitely learn that in
As you
Cecilia.
go.
Did you find that same experience with you? Were you intimidated being this little guy from Cajun country or whatever well, maybe not at UL because I was right down the road, but at, when you made it to the league?
I just remember people, they say I talk funny.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, man.
I've never heard that before. I don't know why you say that.
So I'm like, hold on, man. People say I talk funny. So now I'm trying to learn how to
not talk funny.
So I'm just like, okay. And I remember that. But I wasn't intimidated. I was not intimidated. I think I had a chip on my shoulder. I think I wanted to prove something to myself that I can make it, that I can, because I had big dreams, and I ultimately, reached my dreams. But it was like, I'm from Cecilia, from a little old town in Cecilia, Louisiana, and I was just like, I'm gonna get it done. And I wasn't intimidated. And even when I went to the NFL, it was still like the odds were stacked against me because I went to UL. UL is a Division I school, but it's not Power 5.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not an LSU, it's not a Florida, it's not a Alabama. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was like, okay, so now I'm back to square one again. I'm the little fish in the big pond, and I gotta figure out how to survive. And I did it again. So I just feel like like you said, you got that dog in you. I got the dog in me too.
Absolutely.
I just find a way.
Absolutely. Where do you go from here, man? What is your goal in the next phase of your life, in the next with Michigan and?
So my contract is 2 years. I think I'm going to play those 2 years, man. Really give it my all. Ultimately want to get back to the NFL. If not, it's okay because I invested my money well. And then from there, I would like to ultimately get into coaching. Maybe if it's college coaching or if it's high school, I think I can go that route. I already had a coach. He wanted me to be like a strength and conditioning trainer for college, and I think that's a route I can take. I can see myself being a speed coach because I know how to obviously run. I know the mechanics. I know how to get faster. So I think I can see myself in that profession.
You think you'll be in coaching? Do you think you prefer working with kids or young adults?
Like I said, young adults. Kids is I don't think it's my forte. I would love to speak to kids and try to give them some insight of how to get to where they want to get to. But ultimately, I want to work with young men and try to get them to the next step in life.
Speaking of kids, I'm sure you went back to Cecilia on their dome run and shook some hands and said some words. Your records that blew out everybody. Huh? Are they on the chopping block? Is Diesel gonna give it a run?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Diesel, man. I told him this, man. I remember he DM'd me on Instagram. He was like, I'm coming for your records. I was like, go get him. I was like, you got a lot of running to do, but go get it. And I told him that, man, and he took it as I guess motivation, and he's doing a phenomenal job right now. And I hope he get it, man. I'm definitely rooting for the Bulldogs. I'm definitely rooting for him. I hope he and the rest of the guys reach their full potential and go to college and do well.
They're making us proud, and they really have it going on in the coaching staff. They're doing it the right way. All those kids are very respectful. I go back to their little camp and talk to them. They're doing a lot of things right, so I'm proud of them.
And man, I was really bummed out that they lost in the state championship.
Yeah.
I couldn't be there because my son, I had to do something for my son for daycare. But I remember I was like, man, the Bulldogs, bro. I hope they pull it through. And when they didn't, I was bummed out.
Well, they got another year.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
And we're gonna catch some games this year.
For sure.
You've been very gracious with your time. Couple more questions. Who motivated you? Who pushed you to be your best? Well, who is your biggest motivation?
Growing up, it was my dad. Cause my dad, he was a detective for Bullbridge Police Department, and he was really smart. Like just seeing him get ready for work in the morning, always dressed to impress. He didn't wear a cop uniform. He was a detective, so obviously he wore polo. He was always clean, sharp. He was really smart too. I remember him just always having his laptop, doing this, investigating things, getting things done. I was just like, man, like somebody I can be like. I want to be like him. I want to be as successful as him. And just seeing him do that, and now he teaching me about, like, he the one taught me how to save my money, even from college when I was getting my stipend checks. He was getting like $2,000 a month, but he was telling me like, hey, you do you put this for your rent and this for you utilities, and save the rest. And then ultimately I ended up buying my first car with just saving my money from my college checks, And then now with the NFL, it's just obviously I've gotten more money, but it was easy to just put it away, store it, invest it into certain things, and teaching me about life insurance, teaching me about just all types of things, having good credit. And I was just like, man, like that's the guy.
That's amazing.
You know what I'm saying? Him and my grandfather, and still to this day, it's like, whenever I go home, I go meet, I go sit down with my grandfather. He telling me like, hey, like, and save your money. You been saving your money? Let me see your bank. and he'll ask me, hey, let me see your bank account. So I have to like.
And that's gonna be for the rest of your life.
And it's crazy because it's like, man, like having those two men, my dad and my grandfather, to really like hone in and really teach me how to be a man and be disciplined and set values and have some type of morals, and that's what motivated me.
And then now you have a son.
Yeah, Kingston, man. Kingston Ray Calais. That's my boy, man. He's 3 years old. He's my world. He's everything to me, and that's my why. That's why I do what I do. That's why I work out. That's why I want to be successful. That's why, you know, I want to give him everything that I didn't have, and plus some. So yeah,
that's amazing, man. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for being here. We're all rooting for you. You're an amazing young man, and anything we can do to help you. Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, at King_Calais. Y'all can, you know, don't be afraid to shoot me a DM, man. I'm one DM. I'm just one DM away from talking to you. Just like Chaz reached out, and now, man, me and him, I feel like we got some type of connection here, man.
Absolutely, bro.
And I also want to thank you for bringing me on. You know.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for bringing me on, and because I know you reached out to me like 2 or 3 years ago, and you sent me some of your shirts, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I didn't know you went to Cecilia until you told me.
Really?
Yeah, I had no clue.
Come on,
man. I had no
I'm the
clue.
second most popular guy from Cecilia behind you, bro.
Man, bro, you might be number one after this one.
Come on, man.
Bro, I did not know. I was like, okay, so we got another Bulldog in the house, and you know, I feel like I could relate to you, so that's why I was like, man, you know what? That's a good dude.
Well, thank you, Ray. Good luck, brother.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
Hey, it would mean the world to me if you subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. It helps keep the show free, and it helps us book better guests to provide more valuable content to you. None of the opinions expressed by my guests are that of my own, and nothing we talked about creates an attorney-client relationship or could be construed as legal advice. Hope you enjoy the show.
This podcast is powered by Acadiana Cast Network. Go to acadianacast.com for more South Louisiana sourced content.